It's now been just over a year of Israel's genocidal onslaught against Gaza. And of course, what we've seen is impunity, the sense of the Israeli state, quite rationally the here and now, that they are above the law, that they can get away with anything. And they have committed war crimes and crimes against humanity, some of the most depraved atrocities of our age in full display of the world every single day. Now, of course, a lot of focus has been on those at the top, the leaders. And we, of course, at the moment have the ongoing, for example, International Criminal Court chief prosecutors' requests for arrest warrants against specifically Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. But it's not just the leaders and those at the top of the army that matter. It's the soldiers, the Israeli soldiers, who every single day, including as you're listening to this, are committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. They think they have impunity. Again, in the here and now, they do. But will they have impunity forever? Now, this is a crucial discussion. The Hind Rajab Foundation has just released opened up their case, which we'll talk about, against 1,000 Israeli soldiers with evidence, huge amounts of evidence amassed against them. And just so we know, just in case people aren't familiar, Hind Rajab, of course, was that little 6-year-old Palestinian girl who was butchered by the Israeli state, desperately terrified, in her car, butchered along with 4 of her cousins and her aunt, uncle. We heard her last phone call to the Palestine Red Crescent. The paramedics were sent to save her. They were butchered as well. And the investigation into it, if you read forensic architecture, nobody can any doubt. The soldiers knew who were in the car when they killed all of them. Now, I'm really delighted to be joined by Abou, Jahjah, who is a political activist and spokesperson for the Hind Rajab Foundation. Firstly, it's great to see you. Thank you for being here to talk to us about this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's just start, shall we, with what's just been released. Basically, you filed this complaint against 1,000 Israeli soldiers. Can you just tell me who's been involved in this, over what time period, and how this all came about?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it all basically started. First of all, thank you for having me, Owen. It all started in November last year, 1 month into the genocide in Gaza, when a group of activists, including myself, came together and said, we have to do something. We have to do something about it. And we've seen a lot of things happening. A lot of people have been organizing. A lot of people, media figures like yourself, have been communicating. And everything, every bit helps, and we wanted to contribute, and we thought, okay, let's organize ourselves, and we founded something called the March 30 movement, in reference to Land Day, basically the Palestinian Land Day. The March 30 movement started filing complaints. It came about because we noticed that we have a lot of lawyers among us, and we thought, okay, there's a lot of lawyers, so let's take the legal avenue. There are people organizing demonstrations. That is great. That has to happen. Other people are communicating in the media. And okay, let's do something about litigation, and basically offensive litigation. So we started with a strategy initially out of the March 30 movement to target the soldiers, Israeli soldiers who are binationals, who are dual nationals, who have nationalities of European countries. The logic behind that is that these people, as you said in your introduction, we cannot just keep things symbolic, even though symbols are very important, but symbolic about trying to reach the top, Netanyahu, Gallant, which is great. We have to reach them, and we totally support the approach of the ICC trying to get there, or the condemnation of the state of Israel itself that's being done, or that South Africa is trying in the ICJ. So these are great initiatives, but we felt that we need to go after the soldiers themselves, because there are many layers to that, and one of them is on the practical level, that these soldiers, unlike the heads of states, do not have an argument as to enjoying immunity, legal immunity, while a head of state, there's a whole debate about that. Secondly, there's no debate of jurisdiction when it comes to nationals of, let's say, Belgium, my country where I live, or the Netherlands. If you are a citizen of the Netherlands or Belgium and you are committing war crimes abroad, which is the case of these soldiers in Gaza, then you are accountable to your country, to your home country. So there's no debate on jurisdiction, which is the case when you're talking international law. So these are the advantages of the national law approach, right? So we started filing these cases as March 30 movement against the binational, and we're still working on them. So this is an avenue that we will never leave. Now, as we've been researching to look for these binationals, we've been coming in our research, we've been finding a lot of soldiers who are Israeli themselves, they don't have other nationalities, or we cannot prove these other nationalities, but they were committing terrible things. So we're amassing this data, of course, and keeping it, thinking that, well, this might come handy, and after the genocide, hopefully there will be some kind of legal retribution, legal accountability. So we were documenting this since November last year. At a certain moment, I think a few months ago, we realized that we have a huge amount of data on these soldiers, not just on the binationals, which we are pursuing already actively in the Netherlands and France and Belgium, even in other countries as well, that we will declare soon. We realized we maybe can do something with that. At the same moment, you had the talk about Karim Khan wanting to issue an arrest warrant on Netanyahu and Gallant.
To be clear, so everyone's clear, that's the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court.
Yes. And then, as you know, probably the audience as well, there have been a lot of pressure on the ICC in terms of, trying to block them from issuing this. Countries were intervening, Germany, UK at a certain moment. There have been even threats, from politicians, congressmen in the United States. So we thought, okay, so it's all focused about Netanyahu and Gallant, and Israel is claiming, okay, you do not have jurisdiction on us. They're claiming, of course, immunity. So we thought, okay, we should strengthen the position of Karim Khan. How about introducing a case to the ICC this time, and not to local courts, against Israeli soldiers? So at that same moment, we have decided also to to start the Hind Rajab Foundation, which is now the umbrella under which we will be doing all our litigation, including the binational. So everything, the March 30 movement will no more do litigation under that name. The March 30 movement will focus on narrative and on media, communication, so on. And the Hind Rajab Foundation was founded to continue the way of litigation. And this is how this data that we have been gathering became a project of a complaint. Of course, we had still to process, to create criteria, to check the evidence, to see if it's acceptable in a court of law, to clean it up, basically, in order to, and also to develop the argumentation, to have a very solid case. And that all became ready, let's say, a few weeks ago. We just made the last touches, and we have a very solid case against 1,000 Israeli soldiers. On purpose, we did not include a lot of binationals. We included some binationals symbolically. For example, 12 people from France, even though we have more than 50 profiles in France. But everybody that is included in this complaint, every one of the 1,000 soldier is identified by name, has a whole file that has been individually worked by our lawyers. So it's not that kind of complaint that is attacking a batch, let's say, of potential culprits. It's 1,000 individually worked files.
So this
so it's a huge.
It's not overall complicity. You're actually going for specific crimes committed by individuals. So they're individuals who committed specific crimes attached to them. And just to be clear on this, you have over 8,000 pieces of verifiable evidence. So the point is, you're trying to get, the point is to have to a legal standard. So it's, there are lots of bits of evidence which we will find hideously distasteful and horrible, but that doesn't make them a crime. So you're applying a standard, which is, this is criminal, which includes videos, audio recordings, forensic reports, and social media documentation. I suppose what I'd put to you is, it's often been described, this genocide is the most documented genocide in human history. that is partly due to technological improvement. That is partly down to the courage of Palestinian journalists who've been slaughtered in unprecedented numbers. But it's also due to the fact that Israeli soldiers just keep posting their war crimes online. Al Jazeera have just done a documentary about this because they think they're above the law. They think they have impunity, and they also are overwhelmed by this combination of genocidal mania and racism, which go together clearly. But I mean, they just think, they're posting it because they get social cachet out of it. They're getting pats on the back. They're getting like likes and retweets and people giving them emojis on their various social media platforms. Yeah. Just describe that, because you are basically being helped by the evidence is provided by Israeli soldiers. That's what you're doing.
I think mainly the evidence is provided by Israeli soldiers, except when it comes to forensic evidence, when we have to, for example, pinpoint a certain brigade at a certain time near a crime scene, and we can link, for example, a soldier that is, you need, when you take the picture of a soldier standing on the rubble of a house, for example, and posting genocidal statements such as "We will wipe out Amalek from under the skies," but this is what you see on social media. But in order to make it a piece of evidence to present in a court of law in a serious manner, you have to take this, you have to extract the metadata, if you can, of that. You have to be able of locating, to have forensic analysis to geolocate the house and try to see when was the picture taken, and try to see what happened around that day there, and what brigade was there, and what brigade is that soldier. So there's a lot of work that you have to build around a file in order to transform that social media post of an Israeli soldier into evidence that you can present in a court. So this was mainly the work that we had to do, because, as you said, the Israeli soldiers have been themselves posting these things. So it's very interesting to try to analyze that. I think books will be written on that, psychological books will be written on that, and trying to understand the level of moral decadence that this reflects, and how that also reflects on the general ideology that is driving this genocide. Because this is also it's not just a matter of individual choice. There's something collective behind that. There's some kind of collective psychosis that is that's genocidal, and this is very scary, obviously. And I just seen images from South Lebanon today, and you see the same playbook being repeated there. Taking pictures, filming themselves in people's houses, playing with people's belongings, blowing up the houses in some kind of scene, as if it is a movie scene. So there's a pattern here, and obviously I don't want to do this. This work has to be done, obviously, but I mean, I wonder in how far is it also part of the Israeli strategy in this genocide, as how far is this part of the psychological warfare that's being waged. So it is indeed helpful on the one side that they're doing this, but it makes me think the fact that they keep doing this, there's arrogance in this, a feeling of impunity in this, that nobody can touch us, even though, look, we're letting you see what we're doing. But this is not only coming from the soldiers themselves, this is coming also from their leadership, from the chain of command, that is not intervening in terms of pay attention. So one nuance in this whole thing, Owen, is the binationals, and this is another also importance for the binational complaints that we're still pursuing. We noticed that binationals, when targeted by complaints, they immediately start deleting their profiles or putting them on private and hiding. Why? Because they think they will come back to Europe. So they feel that they are within the reach of national law, at least. Even if they do not take international law seriously, they feel we might be held responsible in Belgium or in the Netherlands. So that's the only nuance into this sentiment of impunity that is clearly present among them.
Just so we're clear about the sorts of crimes that you're examining, so they're divided up into, I can see, 5 categories. So one is destruction of civilian infrastructure, target attacks on homes, hospitals, schools, markets, mosques, other civilian infrastructure. And we should note Gaza now looks like a different color and texture from space, given most civilian infrastructure has been damaged or destroyed altogether. Illegal occupation and looting, so going through civilian homes, looting their belongings, exploiting occupied properties. Participation in the Gaza blockade, and we should note at the moment the International Criminal Court case so far focuses on that. So that's the active role in enforcing a blockade, depriving civilians of the essentials of life, targeting civilians, audio and video evidence showing soldiers deliberately attacking non-combatant individuals, including medical personnel and journalists, use of inhumane warfare tactics, indiscriminate bombing campaigns, starvation, and the systematic destruction of civilian infrastructure. I mean, it's part of this as well to show, I mean, Nuremberg, the classic line was, you can't get away with saying you were following orders. If you commit a crime, it doesn't matter if you've been told to commit a crime, you are committing these crimes. So it's the point of the complicity. Always remember the complicity, of course, the leadership, but it's the fact you're showing that these are all specific crimes, and these people might be drunk on hubris now, might be drunk on racism and genocidal mania, but they're still committing grievous crimes, and this is, holding them to account.
Absolutely, and they are individually responsible for this before talking about their state being responsible. I think this is a dimension that we should stress because, and I agree, we need to talk about the genocide as is, and we need to talk about crimes against humanity. But one of the main features of a genocide is that it's collective, right? Genocide is collective. It is also a genocide, and any other crime against humanity is called that because it is the emanation of a policy by certain leadership that has the intention to destroy in part or in total a group or a population. So the nature of genocide is collective and is related to policy. If there's no policy, you cannot talk of genocide. If you cannot prove intent by the leadership, you cannot talk of genocide. Okay. However, if you look at all these soldiers, right, and what they're committing, they are committing clearly war crimes, right? You cannot say that each one of them is committing a genocide, but the aggregation of their crimes form genocide when it's connected to the communication of Netanyahu and the other leadership who are clearly showing intent of destroying the population of Gaza in whole or in part, which is clearly, and it can be proven in court of law beyond any possible doubt. So there is clearly a genocide going on. But if we dismantle this genocide into small war crimes committed by these soldiers, it might sound less bad, or let's say less extreme, because war crimes, and every war you have war crimes, because this is when a soldier is burning a house or is shooting a civilian, he's committing a war crime. If you can prove that this is a policy that has been systematically being applied, then it's genocide, right? So, but it's important to hold them responsible for their war crime, so that indeed, as you said in your question, in your introduction, indeed that they cannot hide behind the argument of them being just following order. They are next to the genocidal endeavor that is clearly present and directed by the Israeli leadership. There is that dimension of sadistic war crimes that are being committed by these soldiers that makes them individually accountable, even if for some absurd reason Israel is not considered to have committed genocide. Imagine that things go bad on that level, which I don't expect at all to go, but let's, for the sake of argument, even then, these individuals are clearly committing war crimes, and they are war criminals. So I think this is an important dimension, and I think this is why this is very concrete. It's not an abstract notion. No. This is a very concrete thing.
And I should know, Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, just to show the dire, catastrophic nature of Western journalism, because you'd think, if we had a functioning media, coverage would have been framed around this. But it's striking that he said on the 9th of October, he told troops on the Gaza border who he addressed, he said that he had released all the restraints, i.e. on them. And he said to them that Gaza won't return to what it was before. We will eliminate everything. If it doesn't take one day, it will take a week. It will take weeks or even months. We will reach all places. And then the next day, he said Israel was moving to a full-scale response, and he had removed every restriction on Israeli forces. So the point is, again, they're committing individual crimes, and they have been clearly, the Israeli state just said, fill your boots. Absolutely. You can do what you want.
There's no doubt about that. And this is, of course, on the level of magnitude, this is much, much more important to come to that condemnation of the genocide. I mean, the most important goal of the March 30 movement, to speak about that, is to recognize the Gaza genocide, because it's important to acknowledge that genocide as such. But I think within the arsenal, the legal arsenal that we have to also establish accountability on the individual level, and also, we need to create a sense of accountability, even if we start with the weakest links, and these weakest links are these soldiers, and because we know that international law, and we support it, full-heartedly, and everything we're doing is because we still did not lose hope that international law can be upheld. Because imagine we lose this hope and we fall into cynicism. I think we're heading towards a world where nobody of us would like to, live in, because you're totally in a jungle. But so we're keeping the hope despite all the indication of hypocrisy and double standards, and the fact that the United States is weighing hard into shielding, and not just the United States, but also Germany or the UK, more or less now, but still, quite dubious. And many other European countries are also part of this, creating this immunity, this umbrella. This is not just an act of nature. This is an act of policy, of Western governments. So despite all this, we believe that the crimes that committed by Israel, starting by genocide and going down into simple war crimes, I mean, what's in the world? I mean, it's a terrible thing, a war crime. But, when genocide is being unfolded, then you tend to see that less. So all this whole spectrum of crimes should be addressed. And I believe that, okay, we need to work on all levels. We need to support South Africa and what they're doing in the ICJ. This is a great initiative, and it's very hopeful. The ICJ is very hopeful. The ICC, we need to give it drive. Karim Khan took long. He was slow. I don't think he was very enthusiastic into doing something, but eventually he moved. So we need to give him fuel his, give him arguments, and that's why we wanted also to present all this information, because he can say, look, guys, it's not just about it's not a political thing, because when you attack, I mean, when he wants to issue a warrant against Netanyahu, the argument, if you read what the congressmen have written, he's immediately being accused of being biased against Israel and political. But when you present all this data of crimes, individual crimes, I mean, how can you then call somebody shooting a civilian? What is that? Somebody who is shooting an unarmed civilian in conflict, a sniper who is, blocking entry to somebody who's laying on the ground and dying, and then you have medics trying to reach that person, and the sniper trying to shoot the medics, and playing that game, leaving that person alive. So how can you call that? There's no debate on politics there. These are clear-cut crimes, So this helps, I think, the effort into eventually in the aggregation, proving the genocide beyond reasonable doubt to anybody.
Just a couple of final things. The foundation is named after Hind Rajab, who, as I've noted, is this 6-year-old girl who was violently killed by the Israeli state alongside her family. Her 15-year-old cousin rang the Palestine Red Crescent. You hear her being killed on that phone call. You hear her desperately scared of the dark, terrified. The paramedics then killed on the way when those coordinates were shared with Israeli military. And the investigation shows by forensic architecture that given how close the tanks were and all the rest of it, there's no way they couldn't see who was in the car. That's just one example. Why is it so important for the victims, this? Because we're talking here, of course, about perpetrators, but you've named the foundation clearly after one of the most famous victims, and I'm afraid one of a countless number. We have no idea how many children have been killed, but it is many, 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 many thousands.
Absolutely.
So what does this mean for where do the victims feature in all this in terms of why this is important?
Yeah. But to start with, the story of Hind Rajab is heartbreaking. I mean, it breaks my heart every day. But despite the emotionality of that story, I think the importance of it is that it symbolizes the victims of the Gaza genocide, and it symbolizes especially the fact that this genocide has been targeting and inflicting incredible, toll of death toll on children. This is one of the unique features of this genocide, and a unique in a macabre way. So Hind Rajab symbolizes all this, all the victims, of course, also men and women, but also children, and also the way Hind was murdered is an example of that, that sadistic approach. Hind was calling for help. The Israelis bombed the ambulance going there. They did not let help arrive. Eventually, she was killed in the car. So it's an extreme act, and it has that same arrogance that they are also manifesting in these, different occasions, but in the most extreme way. So this is why we went with the name Hind Rajab, because it symbolizes everything. And I don't like comparisons, and every historical comparison is wrong somewhere. But Hind Rajab is like the Anne Frank of this genocide. It is something that's gonna come to symbolize this, and we want it also to hound the perpetrators, to inspire the people who go for this just cause and try to uphold justice and accountability. But on the other hand, we don't want the story of Hind's story to end there, to end just by the agony and the drama and the pain. We want it to become a story of vindication, of justice. So this is a bit the symbolic behind it, and the victim story. Part of our mission in the Hind Rajab Foundation, next to the pursuing justice through litigation against the perpetrators and people who are accomplices. Also, we want to preserve the memory of the victims. There is a work on memory that has to be done. These people are not numbers. These are human beings with dreams, with feelings, with stories, and this has to be put forward. So we have a lot of projects in that regard as well. Of course, now we're prioritizing litigation, but preserving the memory of the victims is something very important for us. So this is a bit the logic behind this choice.
And just finally, a lot of people go, look, they'll be defeatist. They'll think there will never be justice here. These Israeli soldiers are right on one level. They aren't going to get away with anything they want. This impunity is, they've got the world's only hegemon behind them. So at the end of the day, they'll just keep committing these atrocities because they know they can get away with them. What do you say to that? What do you say to people who go, this is, fine in terms of for memory, but for actual dragging these murdering war criminals through courts for what they've done, that's never going to happen. What do you say to that?
First thing I say is I hear you. I hear you, and I feel this, and every day I'm struggling with this as well. Every day I get up and I have a feeling, because we look at reality. We can also see the geopolitical reality and what you described in terms of hegemony and how things are in this world. And but what keeps us going, and what keeps me, I can speak personally in this, is that the fact that I believe that no reality or no situation will last forever. And that's one part of our work. Of course, we have first to try. I don't think, even if our chances are slim compared when you take the balance of power into account, and I mean internationally. But I will give you some points of hope and light. One element is, before talking about the element of time, which is important, which is the most hopeful thing. But let's start with what we can do today, and the facts, the places where this impunity of Israel is not completely or cannot be completely upheld. And this is, again, national law, national courts. Okay, if international law is completely, or for a big part, being let's say blocked by the United States of America at this stage, right? Or influenced by it, or intimidated by it, which is the case definitely in the ICC, and hopefully they can withstand that pressure, and also for partly in the ICJ even, so national law is not always like that. I'll give you an example of Belgium, my country. So here in Belgium, we have if you file a complaint as a victim, direct victim of a crime, and the perpetrator of that crime, and you are a Belgian citizen or resident of Belgium, and the perpetrator of that crime also is a Belgian citizen or a resident of Belgium, then Belgium has absolute jurisdiction over that crime. And we have a system in Belgium called the Constitution of Civil Parties. So when victims file a complaint, nobody will take a decision whether they will pursue investigation, yes or no. It's automatic. This is not the case in the Netherlands, for example. This is not completely the case in France. France is a hybrid situation between the two legal systems. But in Belgium, this is the case. So now we are working on cases against 13 Belgian nationals who are committing war crimes in Gaza. And the people who will file the complaints are not foundations like ourselves or organizations, but individuals. We are, of course, trying to help this whole process and try to support it. But the people who are filing the complaint will be direct victims of them who are also Belgian citizens, or relatives of victims who are also Belgian. So this means that we will have our day in court in Belgium. I know that for a fact. That day in court in Belgium will come. So, and I believe that, okay, you can say, justice is also biased, and yes, we can be critical, but I believe it's not always the case. There's always ways. There have been all through history and other issues, whether it's war crimes and genocide, or even struggles of popular classes and countries or whatever. There have always been victories in the court. I'm not saying this is the only way. That's why I said we just do our bits in one corner of the struggle, and people should be doing all. The demonstrations are crucial. The media work is crucial. The resistance on the ground is crucial. Everything is crucial. So we have to do our bits, and I believe we can have some justice in court, and that if you can condemn one Israeli soldier in Belgium for war crimes and crimes against humanity, by definition, you condemned the whole Israeli military endeavor and political leadership of committing this genocide. If only one soldier can be condemned, you put that on the record. So in that sense, I keep that hope, and I believe that we can. I hope also, for example, Karim Khan will issue these mandates, these warrants. I hope he will do that, because if he does that, this is not no little games. This is not nothing. Not some small thing.
Yeah. Well, he's issued the request. It's the pre-trial judges, of course, who have to approve them.
Imagine they go there. Imagine it happens, and I'm not sure it will. But imagine, this is huge. This means if Netanyahu wants to visit Europe, one of two possibilities: either he cannot, or Europe has to say, look, we don't care about international law. America said already we don't care about international law. America has even a law called the Hague Invasion Act, that rejects the ICC. But Europe tries to sell you a narrative of respecting international rights, and we know we can all nuance that. But eventually, when there is a clear, mandate to arrest somebody like Netanyahu, then there's no way to nuance it anymore. Whether you reject the ICC completely, and which will be a revolution in the wrong way, in the wrong direction, or you have to uphold it. And then that's as such is an important victory if somebody like Netanyahu does no more dare to visit Europe, for example. So I know this is not enough when you look at the injustice. This is not enough when you look at this genocide. But we should never give up. And the last thing that I want to say is that element of time, which is the biggest, I think, the act of hope, or let's say the faith in justice, is for me related also to the fact that time is changing. And I believe that this movement and this awareness that is being, building up now worldwide, people who are for the first time understanding the Palestinian question as it is, and in understanding the nature of Zionism as such, I believe this will eventually, change the realities, political realities, and even in the United States. I'm hopeful in that, and I know it looks very far now with if you look at the current elections, campaign in the United States, doesn't look very hopeful on both ends. But I think this is a matter of time. I believe that within maybe a generation, and you would say, "Oh, are you working for a generation?" Yeah, of course, we have to work long term.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So yeah, I'm trying to do my little bit, with my colleagues. into building, maybe contributing a little bit to what might become effective within a generation. The other option is to give up, and we're not going to give up. Impossible.
No, it's definitely the good place to start. Never, ever give up. And there is always hope. And we can see that in terms of how public opinion has shifted in Western states, which Israel depends on, including a note in the United States of America, where most Democratic voters think Israel is committing genocide. But also, if you look in Britain, where 70% think Israel is committing war crimes, 55% of Britons support Benjamin Netanyahu's arrest for war crimes and crimes against humanity. I could go on. This is crucial.
And we owe it. We owe it to the victims, and we owe it to Hind that symbolizes them. We owe it to them. Yeah.
Amen. Well, this is crucial work, and do check out the Hind Rajab Foundation website at hindrajabfoundation.org. You can donate to support their work so they continue going through hideous material. There's a lot of emotional labor involved going through depravity. But it's really crucial work. So please, for everyone who's watched, listened, please share this video, press like, subscribe, leave your comments and thoughts. Good for the algorithm. More people watch, more people engage. That's the whole point. But yeah, honestly, thank you so much and well done for your work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.